Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Ancient Historia. It has been a while and I do apologise about that. I've been all over the place doing things. I have been doing research, don't worry, haven't been dropping off. Been to Wales. If you guys caught the 15k subscriber special, you might have seen a bit of that video. It was more just to have fun for a few hours, talk to you guys and show the pictures. You don't need to go and watch that if that's not something you're into. I think it's like 3 hours or something of just me and Stephanie and Yayan talking about stuff. Stephanie wasn't even there. She's just in the video to keep the attention off my ugly mug. So anyway, well, I had a plan for today's lesson, which was going to be talking about Tartary. Was going to be going into Little Tartary in particular. I was going to be showing you this document that I've got up. Oh, I'm really sorry, by the way, if you can hear the rain. I'm not sure if you can. I've tried to set the mic up so that you can't, but if you can, I apologise about that. But this document I was going to show you, it's from a little description of the Great World, augmented and reissued, or reused, by Peter Halen. And the original is supposedly from somewhere in the 1600s. It definitely has been sanitized. It's been edited in some ways. It references things that happened 44, might have been 84, but it definitely mentions some stuff that happens in the 1800s, augmented and reissued. So it's definitely been sanitized. It will have had things removed that they don't want us to see. Today's video was going to be going through this document, looking at some of the places mentioned, learning a bit about what it tells us of Tartary, and talking about that and seeing some maps. But as I was going through the maps to discuss this stuff with you, I just suddenly got an urge to go on Google Earth and have a look at something else. So I'll show you what we were talking about. I think this is it here, right? So Lake Baikal. In this map of 1700, it's very clearly identified as just being Lake Baikal, which is or Baikal. Very important, very, very important lake. Lake Baikal actually holds 20% of the world's fresh water. Of all the water in the world, it has 20% of it in that lake, and it's one of the only lakes in the world where you're actually completely allowed to just go and drink the open water from reservoirs because it's that clean. If you've watched the Barjou video, or the Gog Magog video, I did talk about the possibility that Baikal is this area known as Barjou on some of the older maps, and I'll show you that now. So just bear in mind the layouts of this map compared to what we're going to see in a second. Right, so we've come to this map, which is a 1690 map showing the areas of China, well, Asia really, but we've got China down here, the parts of India, obviously areas that become independent Tartary. This is the Caspian Sea. It's very odd, is this is one of those maps that shows the Caspian Sea as running as if it's east to west. If we look at our Google Earth map, we can see that it runs north to south, which it does raise a lot of questions, but it just shows how some of these maps can't really be trusted in terms of accuracy, because we're around here. So this is what actually led me down this path for today's lesson, talking about this, because the North Pole, it moves. Because using compasses was obviously one of the ways they'd know which direction they're facing. So it was a vital tool when it came to map making. Knowing which way is north gives you a constant direction to work with. So if you're drawing your maps and you always know where north is, that gives you something mathematical to work from. But what they possibly didn't know back then was that north like to move a bit. South as well. The poles, they move around. But this is Lake Baikal over here. And coming back to our map, we come back to our map, we'll see that there is no Lake Baikal on this. We have Kitay Lakes over here, which is in Russia. We think we know which that one is. It's called Lake Altin, or Teleskoy Lake nowadays. But that's not important. There's this one up here, Chorus Lake. We think there's a possibility that Chorus Lake is connected to Lake Baikal. And further up, we have Barjou, right on the tip. And that seems to be feeding into the Northern Ocean. Now, Barjou just means land's end, basically. It's like the end of the world is Barjou. I theorized in my Moving Plains of Barjou video and my Gog Magog video, I theorized the possibility that Barjou was actually somewhere around Lake Baikal, and they believed that Lake Baikal was the end of land. If you were coming up to this coast, now from our satellite view, we can clearly see that it's a lake, But as we've talked about, it's a very, very big lake. If you're down here on this coast, would you know that there's land on the other side? Because again, like to us, it seems as if there is. So perhaps they would. Or maybe they'd think that that was the ocean. I'm thinking with 30 miles to the naked eye, these people believed that that was Land's End and that this was connected to the northern oceans. This idea was further backed by the discovery of somewhere nearby called Barjuzinskoye at one point, which has been around for quite a while. So it did raise the possibility that this area here, and the rain has started again, I'm wondering if you can hear it, but it did raise the possibility that this Barju was our Barju from up here. Now, there was one thing that did fight against that. So this map, which came from 1707, and it was based on some Dutch explorer's journey in the 1200s. So it's very interesting that it was written in, or the map was made in 1707 to document something which supposedly happened in the 1200s. But if we look up here, this is evidently Lake Baikal with the way that it connects up to the rivers. But it would imply that this is 100% Lake Baikal. If we look, we can see the Amur River right here. And coming to Google Earth, we can see the Amur, which the mouth is here, and comes down here, and it also comes down here as well. So this thing here, coming from all the way around here. So this is the Amur, and the Argun River is an offshoot of the Amur. It comes off further up. So that would imply heavily, if we're looking at Amur to there, we can see the Amur here. That would imply that we're looking at Lake Baikal here. So if that is Lake Baikal, which we're thinking it is, then that means up here is in fact Barju. And this actually is one of the only maps to give us information on this, because I did hypothesize on the last map that it was possibly Koras Lakes, which appears on many maps, but this obviously would suggest they are two different lakes, and that Koras Lake actually comes off the Lena Flu, or flowing into the Lena River. So that would imply, so coming to this map, we can see down here Irkutsk next to Lake Baikal. That matches our Irkutskoy right here next to Baikal. I'm just making sure that it definitely doesn't say it anywhere, but it doesn't seem to, does it? Seemingly not. Going off this, Lake Baikal's right here with Irkutskoy, which we've just seen right there. So that means that up here, the Lena coming off it seems to be the Aldan. So that would suggest to us that this is in fact the Tartar River. Now, they will have messed with the waterways and made them flow differently. They like to do that. It's one of the easiest ways to distort old maps and at the same time drown and bury and hide all the secrets of the area, flood it with a reservoir. But this is suggesting that what we're seeing here at the top is coming off of the Lena Flu. Somewhere around here. Possibly this one. Notice this one's called the River Maya, like the Mayans. If that is the case, then that would mean Barju was actually up here somewhere around here. And that is, again, something we discussed. We showed the maps, we talked about it. And why am I reiterating it? Because whilst I was looking at this, I was trying to explain why these maps seem to be so confused. And I thought about the polar drift, as I mentioned before, about the north moving. Is this possibly something to do with what we're seeing? Because we have so many maps where the land seems to change inexplicably. You know, things just seem to change vastly. Korea at one point was an island. The east coast of Siberia and China seem to just appear and disappear as necessary. Obviously, they'll put it down to the idea that people weren't really mapping these areas correctly at the time, and there was mistakes, which of course. So I decided to look at the polar drift, just to have a look if there was any way, possibly, whether the north being somewhere else might have explained why all these places were getting mislabeled and misdrawn, misidentified. And this is something we've talked about before, but it is quite incredible to actually visualize and look at. So 1590 is the earliest date that they've got for whereabouts they think the pole was. I think most of these are projections. Somebody wasn't physically going out there and pinging their location back, obviously. But computers are quite good at these kind of things. From 1590 to 1630, it's got 42 years exactly moving north. and then it turns around and it heads south for 100 years. Then it turns back and heads north again, but it starts to curve. And at this point, it heads down, all the way down to this island on the right here that I've shown you on Google Earth now. And I just wanted to bring up how strange the land around here is. It really looks to me like something has swamped through, has been draining through, flooding through. You get me? The water has been dragged. Look at that. They're dragged across the land at violent speeds to create this effect. Because that's what that is. That's water that's done that, nothing else. But as we can see, it moved over here. That was Cambridge Bay that we just saw on the map. The came down to here for 1859. And 1859 is when something very strange happened. You see, 1859 represents a reversal in the direction of the pole, which at this point had been moving south for about 100 years. And in 1859, it suddenly saw a reversal, which started moving it north. At this point here, we can see it did turn around for a teeny bit, but then in 1904, it decided it was definitely moving, and it just kept going and going. And this is where it lies now. Look at that. From there, from here, all the way over here. And it's when you consider the movement, and that is from 1859, so almost 200 years. We're coming on 200 years, and we've travelled all the way up here. It was on this island. But like I say, we're seeing some very, very strange geographical features around here. Look at that. It looks like the mud around a river. And it's very possible. These are things you've got to look into, like Chan Thomas, the Adam and Eve story, that kind of, I mean, he does go into some really crazy stuff. So you've got to you've got to extract the nuggets from, I mean, you've got to do the same with me. What I'm saying right now is conjecture. That's what I believe based on what it looks like. I mean, it's pretty evident that the only thing that's going to be damaging the land like this is water. I mean, look at it. There's water there, just to give it away. But you can see how all these were drowned out with water. So the water rushing through, or rushing over the land, has created this type of effect. That's the magnetic north and how it's moved. And it happened in 1859, this huge reversal where it started going. What happens in 1859? Well, some of you might have heard of the Carrington event, which was the most intense geomagnetic storm in recorded history, peaking from the 1st to the 2nd of September 1859 during solar cycle 10. It created strong auroral displays that were reportedly global and caused sparking and even fires in multiple telegraph stations. The storm was most likely the result of a coronal mass ejection from the sun colliding with the Earth's magnetosphere. The geomagnetic storm was associated with a very bright solar flare on the 1st of September 1859. It was observed and recorded independently by British astronomers Richard Christopher Carrington and Richard Hodgson, the first records of a solar flare. A geomagnetic storm of this magnitude occurring today would cause widespread electrical disruptions, blackouts, and damage due to extended outages of the electrical power grid. So the event took place a few months before the solar maximum. So it's very interesting, isn't it, that the most intense geomagnetic storm to ever take place in recorded history caused the Earth's magnetic north to suddenly start moving so fast. Now, like I say, movement is seemingly very normal. The poles aren't quite what we think they are. A much more fluid-like reaction to their behavior. The north and south magnetic pole aren't antipodal either. They're not on opposite sides of the planet to each other exactly. But I don't think we can argue with the fact that in 1859, something definitely started to change. Now, people today claim that the pole moving is nothing. It's not a big problem. So maybe it's not. But I think there is clear evidence that 1859 had some kind of impact on its behavior that it didn't recover from, because at this point it seems as if it's staying in a very localized area at the north of Canada. And then it decides, no, I've got to go north. And in fact, now it has moved past the North Pole and it's much closer to Russia. And I'm going to show you that now. When I was looking for data to talk about this, I wanted to bring up the South Pole as well, because the South Pole hasn't moved as much. And must clarify, by the way, this is the magnetic pole, not the actual pole. So you've got three types of pole, actually. I'll show you that now. So you've got the geographic North Pole. Obviously, that doesn't move. It's literally the furthest north you can go before you start going south again. Then you've got the magnetic pole. That is what our compasses point at. So a compass will always point at the north magnetic pole, which is actually the south pole, because obviously magnets are opposites. So your compass will always point at the north magnetic pole. And then you also have something that they call the geomagnetic pole. The geomagnetic pole is theoretical at this point, but it does have a lot of scientific proponents, including, major world governments that believe it is a real thing. The geomagnetic pole acts much more like a bar magnet, in which the north and south geomagnetic pole are on opposite sides of the Earth at all times and move in unison. That's different from the magnetic pole, which moves and flows a lot more like a fluid, whereas this behaves much more like a bar magnet. And again, it is theoretical, but they believe that the north magnetic pole is still right here at the tip, and it does move as well. We do have data on that. Polar drift is a geological phenomenon caused by variations in the flow of molten iron in Earth's outer core, resulting in changes in the orientation of Earth's magnetic field, and hence the position of the magnetic north and south poles. The North Magnetic Pole is approximately 600 miles from the geographic North Pole. The pole drifts considerably each day, and since 2007, it moves about 55 to 60 kilometers per year as a result of this phenomenon. The South Pole is constantly shifting due to changes in the Earth's field, so this just talks, as you can see, about the movement. It shows us the North, and it doesn't give us much information on the South. It just gives us these points, look. That's not going to help you, is it? So, I thought I'd plot it for you to show you. So, on Google Earth, if you remember, in 1859, our magnetic pole was situated around about here. And then it performed its little jump maneuvers. And then it did a small reversal and ended up somewhere around here. But this is the data for 1900. Fortunately, I was able to find some of the data for 1900, but I'll go into that in a sec. And this is the year 1900. Then I plotted on 1950, and I've plotted on 2000, and I've plotted on 2020 and 2025. And then I've just drawn a line directly between 1900 and 2025, which is obviously where it's going to be. I'm not a time traveler, just projections. I've drawn this line, which is a distance of 1,540 miles. In 125 years, the pole will have moved 1,540 miles, which is incredible. You can see how it was chilling in this general area. We don't know how long for. Maybe it was chilling in this area for hundreds of years. We don't really know. But it definitely started catapulting this way. And as you can see, it's not far off at this rate. Considering the speed that they said, the increase in the speed, if we were to take this length here, we could easily deduce how many years it'll take before it's in Russia. So using this little measurement, we can see that the length is 124 miles. So we'll call it 125 miles in 5 years. So that's 25 miles a day. Does that match up with what we heard? Well, it does say 34 to 37 miles. But of course, we do have to remember that it doesn't seem to be exactly in a straight line. It does seem to wibble and wobble, go left and right. So perhaps 25 miles is being generous, but I think we'll stick to 25 miles. I think we'll stick to 25 miles per year, just to be conservative. And we can see that from the spot that is estimated from 2025, it will be 633 miles before we reach land. So that's 633 miles before we reach land. So let's just divide that by 25. That would be 25 years with a little bit of change. So in about 25 years, and don't forget, we've been conservative with our 25. Wikipedia said 35, and it seems to be increasing. So let's hypothetically say that it was going to be 25 miles a year on average over the next 25 years. In the year 2050, the North Pole, the magnetic north, so where your compass would point, would be right here. Thing is, that doesn't make much of a difference to us living where we live. But if you live here, I mean, I presume not many people do, but if you live here, on the tip of Alaska or Siberia, around these areas, whether north is here or over there, that's quite a big difference, isn't it? If you've got your compass out and you're here and it's telling you north's over here, and then 50 years later, north's over there, that's a massive difference. That's a huge difference. That's insane. I mean, if you were here, you've watched north go past you. North started over there and now it's over there. It's completely the wrong direction. So let's just have a look at what's happened in the south. So I've added on a little marker for where the geographical South Pole should be. Let's have a look at where it was in 1900. So this is, don't forget, that is geographical. That one doesn't change. That's always the southern tip of the planet. And this one is the magnetic. So this is magnetic south. This is where the South Pole would be. So as you can see, 1900, right here. It moved up to here in 1950. It moved over to here in 1998. And obviously I've plotted a lot more data points here, so it does appear as if it's slowing down. So what I'll do, there we go, so that's 25 years, and the distance is 114 miles. So that would work out to something like, 4 point something miles a year that one's moving, which is not a lot at all compared to the north, is it? But, so the north was moving somewhere in the 30s to 40s miles a year. This is moving a tenth of that, only 4 miles a year. And I plotted the distance between the 1900 and 2025, which will be 639 miles. So don't forget, it was 1,540 in the north. This one, 639 miles. So in the same period, as the crow flies, 2.5 times further the north has travelled than the south. Yet, at the moment, the north is travelling 10 times faster per day, which is interesting. The direction, of course, would point towards Australia, but it has, from this angle, in the past 25 years, has started to go left, so you don't know, maybe it's heading off this way. But yeah, people are pretty agreed that it's heading towards Australia, although it's going to take many years, as you can see. At that rate, it's going to take another 100, 200, 300 years before it hits Australia, if it carries on moving in that direction and doesn't change. The thing I wanted to quickly look at was the antipodes, because as I said, they don't work like a bar magnet. This is not the opposite side of the world. I wonder where the antipode is, because that'll give us a good idea, or a good view of the travel of these two things. So this is the 1900 antipode. That means the exact opposite side of the Earth to where the southern pole was in 1900. So if it was a bar magnet, if you ran a tunnel through the Earth from that point, you'd come out here in Greenland. So in the year 1900, this was the antipode of the South Pole. I should say magnetic, just to clarify. So the antipode of the magnetic south, and this was the actual magnetic north, which gave us a distance of 1,384 miles. So between these points was 1,384 miles. This is the point in 2025. So this is how much the South Pole has moved. The antipode has moved, obviously, the opposite of the South Pole, and this is how far it's gone. And it's moving this way. Whereas we can see that the North Pole is moving north. So the South Pole is moving south, while the antipode of the south is moving south, and the North Pole is moving north. In 2025, the North Pole will be here, magnetic north will be here, and magnetic south's antipode will be here. That gives us a distance of 2,101 miles, where the two magnetic poles should be opposite to each other. And I'm not saying that they literally should be, because again, that's not how it seems to work. As far as magnets go, if this keeps moving, if this does end up there in 25 years, if the North Pole really is in Russia, then the distance, and this one's going to have moved a bit as well, and this one will be over here, the distance will be even further. So the magnetic poles are getting closer to each other, because if the antipodes are getting further away, then obviously they're getting closer. So that means that the north magnetic is heading in the same direction as the south magnetic. You see? They are moving towards the same place. That cannot be good for the planet. That's all I'm going to say. That cannot be good for the planet. And now, where would you say is somewhere in between there? Up this way. So let's just follow the line. Imagine, just follow the direction. We don't want to change our angle of where we're coming from. And as you can clearly see, the North Pole and the South Pole are heading in the same direction as each other. When I was trying to look into this, I noted that English sites, they didn't really want to talk about this too much. They just, I mean, they do, but they're just hard to find, especially on Google and stuff. But luckily, Japan to the rescue provided us with all this data on where the poles were, showed us the movement of the South from 1900 to 2025, shows us the movement of the geomagnetic pole of 1900 to 2025, which is moving in the opposite direction. And the same over here. We can see 1900 to 2025, the same thing pretty much that I've plotted out. And you can also see that the geomagnetic pole has moved up to here. This just briefly talks about magnets, so if you would like to read it, just pause the video and go ahead and do that, because we're going to just move on down to the bottom. And it's talking about, so it talks about polar drift. It's called declination, by the way. Whatever the difference is between true north and magnetic north, that angle is called declination. The true north being the actual top of the planet, and magnetic north being pole created by the geomagnetic field. Now, this is the interesting bit. It says the reason why we now have westward declination in Japan is probably due to the presence of a strong positive geomagnetic anomaly around Lake Baikal in Siberia. I knew there was a reason why I suddenly went on this weird tangent. I was here to teach you guys about Lake Baikal, and it turns out I did, in a weird way. I mean, it does look like the North Pole is on its way down to Lake Baikal, doesn't it? Look at that. It's literally on the way. Well, I say literally. It would miss it, but it says around. So there is a geomagnetic anomaly around Lake Baikal, which is also the oldest lake in the world and holds 20% of the world's fresh water. It's also probably considered to be right in the middle of the most eastern Tartarian provinces, the ones that were just north of China. They're the reason that China built the wall to keep these guys out. So is there something going on around here? Is there something strange going on around Lake Baikal that's created this geomagnetic anomaly, which is literally dragging the magnetic poles from both sides of the planet towards it? Look at that. That's going in the direction as well. So if there was some kind of anomaly around here, it does look as if it's pulling the poles towards it, doesn't it? So what's going on there? And why haven't they talked about this more? Why is that not a big deal? Don't worry, guys. The North Pole might be in Russia in 25 years, but don't worry about it. That's not going to ruin everybody's ability to navigate. What are we going to do? Go back to stars? You're not even going to know where North is soon. 2,190 miles. I mean, the Earth's supposed to be 24,000 miles in diameter, so bearing that in mind, the pole has moved almost a tenth of the whole planet in the past 200 years, and it's speeding up, and it's heading for Russia, and it seems to be heading towards, as the Japanese pointed out, this magnetic anomaly around Lake Baikal. So is this something to do with why Tartaria was destroyed? Is this why Tartaria was destroyed? Did they accidentally break the universe? Did someone turn a really powerful magnet on? And they've just been trying to deal with the plot twists of Lost ever since. I don't know. So there was this piece from, where's the date? 19-something. I don't even know. But it's a short piece from the 1980s, I think. This is the original. So this is just talking about the abstract. The magnetic field of the Baikal Rift Zone differs both from that of adjacent territories and from oceanic rifts in its character and intensity. There is no strip-like structure of the field in Baikal. It is assumed that the thickness of the magnetic anomaly generating layer in this region is small due to a high thermal gradient in the crust. Basic intrusions are predicted at depths up to 18 km. There is evidence of instability in the geothermal field. That's from the 1980s. That's one of the only things I could find on it. The other thing I just wanted to bring up, which is unrelated, an accidental discovery of an Iron Age archaeological site on the western shores of Lake Baikal, and it shows that These results make it apparent that the Iron Age on the western shore of Lake Baikal started about 700 to 900 years earlier than is generally accepted. So even though this hasn't been a lesson like my usual ones, where we actually go deep into Tartaria, we have talked about a few things, and I think the fact that it came back to Lake Baikal being the source of some kind of magnetic anomaly, which is literally dragging the North and South Pole towards it. South Pole a lot slower, but maybe that's because it's further away. Maybe the pull is weaker. I don't know. But the North Pole, I mean, as it gets closer, it seems to be speeding up, which maybe that is insinuating the case. Maybe the North Pole is literally being dragged over here by something, presumably, that is attracting it from around here. And the Japanese know about it, but I presume it won't be a big deal. I'm sure they'd tell us. They'd tell us if it were, wouldn't they, guys? If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and a comment. If you didn't enjoy this episode, please leave a like and a comment. The algorithm can't tell the difference. The next episode, I'll be getting into the actual capitals of Tartaria. If you want to get ahead of the class, you can come and read this before I go over it, and then you'll have a head start. But we'll be talking about this. It brings up a lot of places, a lot of cities that we can go and have a look at today. Talks about Kings of Scythia, all that. But the main thing I think that we'll be looking at is this one. Tartaria Precapensum. Right? We'll be talking about that, which is known as Little Tartary, modern day Crimea, Ukraine, that area there. So, yeah, we'll be going into that because there are 4 ancient cities around Crimea that were all Tartarian. I've located them. So, I mean, they all still stand today. A lot of the cities, especially in the Far East, they've been completely wiped off, renamed, had more people moved in. I mean, the cities still exist, but all evidence of them's gone. Whereas that's not happened as much with these cities. You can still find out that Prekops is there. And Krim, it's just spelt Krym now, I think. Staria, Krim or something. So they're still there. Theodosia is now Theodosia with an F instead of the th. So it's Theodosia. This is my my little thing to do. But yeah, these are some of the places. This Theodosia. That's it. Okakov, whatever that is. Yeah. So that's one of them. Stary Krim, which is the old Crimean capital. So this is where the Crimean king or Khanate, emperor, whatever you want to call him, that's where he would have been. And then Perikop, which is Perikops. So, we're going to be going over this and having a look at those in the next episode. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you do leave a lot of comments, because if you leave more comments, I'll definitely come back tomorrow for more videos. And we do need to do this. We'll go through all of the capitals of Tartaria. We'll go through all the cities, try and find as many as we can, and see if we can uncover any more secrets to lead us to what the answer might be about this crazy magnetic presence that's going on in Baikal. Are the Russians working on something, or is this out of their power? Is everybody confused? I don't know. This is really interesting. I only just found out about this as I was doing this research, which was just a complete offshoot of what originally I was going to talk about. But I think that just means we were meant to talk about it. So this book was originally classified by the CIA, and then they released a sanitized version in 2013. So they removed some things. You can get that book online. You can read this on CIA.gov. Talks all about the Earth and how this event could happen where the poles switch, basically, and within one day, the entire world falls to pieces. I mean, I feel like I should talk about this, but shall I do an episode on this? Would you guys like to hear about this? Because if you would, then we can talk about this. But I read it the other day, and it was quite good, but it gets a bit crazy. I will be honest. It starts off very like, oh, this sounds very interesting, and then by the end, he's like talking about wizards. But yeah, so this is just the contents. It talks about the next cataclysm, so what will happen. Goes into a load of things, and then it's the longer book that has way more influence. So if you want to go through this, have a look. The next cataclysm talks This guy's main theory is that about every 7,000 years, the planet's poles switch, and it weakens the magnetic field, or something weakens the magnetic field, which causes all the continents to basically just start moving around. So that's at 6,500 years for Noah, 11,500 for Adam and Eve, and then he lists even more, goes into it. So yeah, this just talks about what will happen. Basically goes into California being blown up, all the cities of the world being wiped off the face of the world by ravaging winds and tidal waves, and then the people emerging at the end in a stone age, just a few people alive. There are some bits that are just fucking weird to read, I'll be honest. Sorry to swear, but there is an entire bit where he talks about how Adam and Eve were actually father and daughter. And that was enough internet for me at that point. That really changed things. And on that bombshell, I think I should end the episode. So, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Ancient Historia.